Welcome back. Now, Elzine Mushimba, the CEO of Impact Tank, is a social venture builder based in Switzerland and is a featured speaker that is at the Africa Summit hosted by the African Association that is in Gallen today. Now, as a successful entrepreneur and impact investor, Mushimba's insight is valuable for attendees looking to drive positive change in Africa. Joining us on Zoom is Elzine. Good evening, Elzine, and welcome to the Daily Roundup.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me.
Right. Now, to begin, just maybe kindly share with us the inspiration behind the establishment that is of Impact Tank.
Right. It was really sort of born out of the needs that I saw on the ground in Namibia. The specific sort of venture building model I've seen work very well in my time spent in Nairobi, Kenya. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Elzine.
All right, perfect. So it really was sort of seeing the untapped potential and the needs on the ground in the Namibian country. I've seen the business model work specifically in East Africa, and then of course just relocating to Zurich, Switzerland, where almost everything works from an infrastructure perspective. I knew and I realized quite quickly that I wanted to sort of bring all of that knowledge and finance back to the Namibian context, but of course localize it to develop specific solutions for the Namibian people.
All right.
And that's really how it was born.
Okay, now what role can social ventures and impact investigating that is in play, rather play in addressing urgent challenges in Africa as a whole?
Right, so I think sort of social entrepreneurship and impact investment provides this sort of symbiotic relationship where if you look at impact investments, it provides sort of this growth capital that allows for changes to be made, right? If you look at some of the specific problems that social entrepreneurs address, and some examples in Namibia are in the healthcare space, you see Ineka, this digital platform that allows for continuity of patient care and digitization of patient management records. If you go further into sort of northern parts of Africa and you look at M-Pharma, that really is this digital platform for the management of this network of pharmaceuticals to allow for accessible and affordable medication for people. If we look at some of our partners in Angola, you also see them tackling sort of instant payment and payment solutions for cross-border traders through a social entrepreneur organization called Aki. So, you know, it's really the symbiotic relationship where I think impact investment allows for the lubricant of the growth capital, and then the social entrepreneurs themselves absorb this capital provided by the impact investments to ultimately sort of better livelihoods for people on the continent, specifically in Namibia. So that's really sort of where you see this relationship between the two.
All right. Now, Elzine, could you perhaps just explain to us how venture capital is creating new markets that is for socio-economic impact, and perhaps just provide us with any examples specifically for Namibia as well as Africa as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, so venture capital really is providing sort of early stage financing, right? And specifically in the Namibian market where you see sort of people not wanting to take on risks at an early stage, right? So venture capital fits that niche where, you know, maybe private equity doesn't want to play or the local banks don't want to play because the risk is a little bit higher in the venture capital space. So it really takes on that specific role. I think some of the examples I've mentioned already, but if we look in the agricultural space, perhaps we see Farm Fresh, that's a digital platform for connecting smallholder farmers to specific markets. We have that Farm Fresh operating in Namibia, but we also have sort of Accelera Agro operating for smallholder farmers in the Angolan context. You've got entities like Matla in the healthcare space alongside Ineka, and Matla really is this sort of mobile health clinic that allows for people to access affordable primary healthcare around the country. On the financial inclusion space, of course, M-Pesa is the biggest example in East Africa. Again, in East Africa, you're also looking at sort of Trigger Foods that provides market access for smallholder farmers. So I think there are just so many of these examples of where you see social entrepreneurship taking charge and providing the necessary access to social capitals for local people. And then, of course, impact investment provides that growth capital where necessarily perhaps the equity players or the angel investors or the banks don't want to play, and VC provides that.
All right, now, Elzine, let's shift our focus now, that is to the Africa Summit. Maybe just help us understand what exactly happens at this event.
Right, so I think the Africa Summit is really sort of an amazing large platform that takes place in Europe, or rather in East Switzerland, every single year, that gets this plethora of people together from the Big Four, and the Big Four being Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Egypt, but then of course this year Namibia as well, which I represented. And so it really just allows for this exchange in knowledge, information. You have working sessions, access to specific investors, access to specific sort of trade agreements, enlarging ecosystems. So it's really sort of this mesh between panel speaking engagement, presentations from thought leaders, but providing this sort of intercontinental exchange of finance and knowledge from a host of individuals at this specific event.
Right, Elzine, we wish we could talk to you the entire time, or rather have you for the rest of the duration here on Daily Roundup. But due to time, we have to let you go. And thank you so much for making time for us here on the Daily Roundup.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a lovely evening.
All right. Now, there you have it. That was Elzine Mushimba, the CEO of Impact Tank, a successful entrepreneur and, of course, an impact investor, as well as a social venture builder based in Switzerland. She is the featured speaker at the just ended Africa Summit that is hosted by the Africa Association today. Now, this is the Daily Roundup. Don't go